Sorry to miss you yesterday. Last thing I want to do is ever miss class, so I'm going to try to make it up with this video and with an email that I'm sending you guys, as well as some details about our lessons. So look for that email. A couple things I want to mention here. You should be getting a copy of your essay. Wolf and Ethan, I've already shared the Google document that your essays were on. And for the rest of the students, go ahead and check your email. I sent you either an image or a typed out copy of your essay with comments. And what I'd like you to do with that is go ahead and finish your essay. So your final draft of your essay will be due next week. If you have any questions about the comments I made, feel free to email me or call me to talk it through. It's probably easier to email me because I can respond anytime. I can't always take phone calls, but if you want to call to talk over a few things, that's fine too. What we're going to do today is look through the PowerPoint that I put together for our class, and then we're going to look at a couple of things that I'd like you to do for next time, including, of course, that final draft of the narrative essay. So we're moving on to persuasive essays now, and we'll move on to persuasive and then the other two essay forms as well between now and the end of the semester, which is coming up pretty quick. So I wanted to make sure we got a jump start on that, especially after missing class due to the church event a couple weeks back. So, all right. So I'm gonna go to the PowerPoint now. I'll talk about that, and then from there you can look for that email, both the group email and the individual email to you, and complete your assignments. Okay, let's go now to the PowerPoint where I'm going to talk about your assignments and some of the content for this week, including the persuasive and narrative essays. So, this is week 5, and this is the persuasive essay. So, we are going to be talking about the persuasive essay this week, and part of your homework will be to compose a paragraph with your opinion on some topic. But for now, I want to talk about your narrative essays really quickly and some of the common writing mistakes that you see all the time, and it's just something that we all in our writing have to avoid. So I just listed a few of the common writing mistakes that I saw in your papers, and I just wanted to go through them quickly. So one of the things is that you should always spell out numbers 1 through 10. So numbers 1 through 10 should always be spelled out in words, and numbers 11 through anything else, infinity, can just be written as the actual number. So for example, if I said my neighbor had 2 dogs, I would spell out the word 2, T-W-O. Clarity is another thing I wanted to bring up. One thing you can use as a rule of thumb is that, think about what your audience knows, right? So always be thinking from your audience's perspective, right? So in a narrative essay, your audience doesn't know as much as you do about your life, so you try to be as clear as possible and give them, you don't have to give them every detail, but just make sure that you're explaining something as though you are new to this story. And we'll look at specific examples of that and get a better idea of what exactly I mean. But sometimes I did write clarity on your papers that I emailed to you individually, and so that's what I mean. So if you take a look at the places in which I said clarity, that'll kind of give you an indication of where I'm talking about in your paper. And then in class, we can talk further about that as well. Capitalization, the simplest rule is just at the beginning of a sentence and a name. So at the beginning of a sentence, you always capitalize the first letter, of course, and then any name, the name of a person, the name of a pet, the name of a building, the name of a organization, a political party, a business, etc. Those are all capitalized. Repetition, I notice that, when we're first drafting, a lot of times you come up with a sentence and then you kind of think, well, let me re-explain that a little bit differently. And then you might explain it again in a third sentence. And really it's the third sentence that, that might be best. And so those 2 previous sentences you can just delete. So I did see some repetition of ideas in your papers. And again, that's normal for first drafting, but you do want to eliminate those in your final draft. Finally, the best advice I can give you about writing on the high school level and the college level is to read your paper aloud. It's the easiest way to catch common mistakes, and it allows you to check for punctuation, for grammar, and for just proper phrasing, and for clarity for that matter. So You can eliminate, I always say you can always improve your grade by 1 full letter grade simply by reading your paper aloud. All right, let's move on to essay structure. When you're writing your final narrative essay, I want you guys to make sure that you have an introduction, a conclusion, and body paragraphs, right? A beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, so the two ways we've thought about essay structure in this class are the what and then the typical 5-paragraph essay structure. So let's talk about the what's. So the first bullet point there, what, is just simply explaining what you're going to talk about, right? So introducing the story in the case of a narrative essay, right? The so what is why does it matter? And the now what is what are you going to do with the information you have? So you can use that in a narrative essay format, like the story I told you guys about losing my hacky sack on a window ledge. The what was, I was playing hacky sack and I lost my hacky sack. The so what was, how was I going to get it back? And the now what was what I learned from the experience. The 5-paragraph essay is, of course, the most straightforward essay structure. It's one I think you all have seen, and I know we've introduced this earlier in class, so of course you've all seen it. But I just want to make sure that for some of you, you don't have a conclusion. You don't really have a place where your essay really ends or is summarized. And some of you have a very abrupt or brief beginning. So I just want you to fully develop that. And it does come down to writing style, so perhaps a brief introduction does work best for your stories. But remember that you have to, in an introduction, make sure we know what you're talking about. And of course, the body paragraphs do the important work of telling the story, or in the case of the what structure, telling us why it matters, or so what. But the conclusion is just as important. You do want to provide closure for your audience. Okay, so let's talk about the persuasive essay. Again, your assignment, and it's described in the email I sent to the group, is to write 1 paragraph on some issue. So let's talk, though, about what a persuasive essay really is. All it is taking some issue, some controversial issue, some semi-controversial issue, and taking a position for or against that issue. That's it. Okay? Now, you are going to list reasons why you are for or against something. And that's the persuasion part, right? So if we were just going to ask you to write your opinion, it may not be a persuasive essay. It might be just you saying your opinion. Well, your opinion may not convince me to take your point of view. So you have to convince me, and that's where the persuasive part is. In a persuasive essay, you are trying to persuade the reader, not just make a list of reasons, but persuade the reader to take your point of view. So some controversial issues are listed here, and you don't have to pick from this list, but I just thought that I would give you, what I've got here, 18 different issues that you could at least think about when writing your essay. So if you want to pause the video here and think about if any of these are going to work for you, great. If they don't, there's all kinds of controversial issues, and you can Google a list of probably hundreds of them. So now planning your essay is something we're going to talk about further next time. So this is really about planning your persuasive essay. But remember that after you choose your position, which I think is going to be relatively easy for most of you, I think all of you have pretty clear ideas about what you think about the world, which is great. But do analyze your audience. Your audience is going to be us in the classroom. So, perhaps we agree with you, perhaps we don't. Either way, you want to persuade us to take your position. And then I will have you guys do some minor research. This class is not a really heavy, research class, but we will be doing some minor research for this topic and or for this essay. And so, you do want to kind of look up eventually when you choose your overall persuasive essay topic. You want to look up your topic and see what facts you can find out about it. For now, for your assignment, you're just going to choose an issue. You're not going to do any research, and you're just going to write down your opinion and the best reasons for supporting your opinion. You also want to structure your essay, and we talked about that earlier. Okay, so finally, this is the assignment. So write a rough paragraph. So I'm fine with the first draft. So you want to write a quick paragraph on an issue of your choice. In other words, so it's going to be part of a persuasive, as though it were part of a persuasive essay. So it could be the introductory paragraph. It could be a body paragraph. And I want you guys to be ready to share in class next week. So again, the assignment is write a brief paragraph on some sort of issue, take a position, and try to persuade us of your point of view. Okay? And act as though it's a paragraph from an essay. Okay, now I did want to talk briefly about sentence structure. We have talked about independent versus dependent clauses. An independent clause is something that could be a sentence on its own, but it can also join with other independent and dependent clauses. So there are 4 types. We got the simple sentence, the compound sentence, the complex sentence, and the compound complex sentence. So the simple sentence, pretty straightforward. It's an independent clause. For example, I like pizza. We see the subject I, the verb like, and so we have an independent clause. Now a compound sentence has 2 of those. Okay, I like pizza, comma, but, that's our comma fanboys, spaghetti is my favorite food. So we have 2 independent clauses, I like pizza and spaghetti is my favorite food, joined by a comma plus a fanboy's word, comma, but. Now a complex sentence is just an independent and 1 or more dependent clauses. In the example, I just have 1 dependent clause, on Tuesday, that's our dependent clause. I met the senator. I met the senator is our independent clause, on Tuesday is our dependent clause, and it's a complex sentence because we have both of those, and of course you separate dependent clauses from independent clauses with a comma. Compound complex, 2 or more independent clauses and 1 or more dependent clause. Okay, so I have here 2 independent clauses and 1 dependent clause. So though she was a private person is our dependent clause. Then we have an independent clause. Octavia Butler did sit for a few interviews in her life. That's the independent clause. And then another independent clause joined by a comma fanboys. So we have comma and then our second independent clause. She even performed once on stage before 500 people. So we have dependent clause, though she was a private person. Independent clause, Octavia Butler did sit for a few interviews in her life. And then another independent clause, she even performed once on a stage before 500 people. So that's our compound complex sentence. So here's what I'd like you to do. In addition to the final draft of your narrative essay, the quick paragraph about your persuasive essay, I'd also like you to write 4 sentences. Write a simple sentence, okay? Write a sentence that has 1 independent clause. I'd also like you to write a compound sentence, okay? I'd also like you to write a complex sentence, and I'd like you to write a compound complex sentence. Here are all the rules again. So you got simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. And you can always pause the video here and write these 4 sentences, these 4 different sentence structures, and then bring those to class. Okay, so as a review, your assignment is to finish your narrative essay, write 1 paragraph in a persuasive essay, and it's a rough draft, and then write 4 sentences, each one of a different sentence structure. Okay? I will see you guys in class.